Okay, welcome back. My name's Robert. I am an LPC supervisor in the state of Texas, and you are watching Welcome to Supervision. This is a third installment on ethics. We are looking at the American Counselors Association Code of Ethics. We are in the 2014 version. Present time, that's what we're under. And we are going through them section by section. This is primarily for my supervisees, my LPC associates, but for those that are maybe stumbling into this and have found it, it may be a benefit to you if you're an LPC for someone else, but because this is something we're all under. This is a requirement for us as counselors. So like I said, we have so far covered sections A, counseling relationship, section B, confidentiality and privacy, and we are now in section C, professional responsibility. This one here weighs pretty heavy, and so I think because of that, we need to really focus on a few of these elements. So I'm going to read straight from section C's introduction. I want you to go back. Don't trust me on any of this, guys. Go back and verify what I am reading and that it is coming straight out of the 2014 ACA ethics guidelines. Introduction. Counselors aspire to open, honest, and accurate communication in dealing with the public and other professionals. Counselors facilitate access to counseling services, and they practice in a non-discriminatory manner within the boundaries of professional and personal competence. They also have responsibility to abide by the ACA Code of Ethics. Counselors actively participate in local, state, and national associations that foster the development and improvement of counseling. Counselors are expected to advocate to promote change in the individual, group, institution, and societal levels that improve the quality of life for individuals and groups and remove potential barriers to the provision or access of appropriate services being offered. Counselors have a responsibility to the public to engage in counseling practices that are on rigorous research methodologies. Counselors are encouraged to contribute to society by devoting a portion of their professional activity to services for which there is little or no financial return. It's known as pro bono. In addition, counselors engage in self-care activities to maintain and promote their own emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual well-being to the best meet their professional responsibilities. Now guys, this is kind of everything that we're about to look at. That's it in a nutshell, okay? So for those that are my supervisees that are under me and my licensing, if you've already had at least one session with me, we've already talked about self-care. We've already begun discussing what you have to do to take care of you in order to be there to help other people. Because trust me, you're going to hear stuff that's hard to accept, hard to cope with, okay? It is your responsibility to take care of yourself. So let's go into the areas here that are specific. Section C has 8 specific areas, and of those, several of them are broken into some subsections by the smaller letters. On this episode of ethics, I have chosen to basically just cut out using a snip tool and place them directly into the slide so you can see it word for word. This is important stuff, guys. I want to make sure that it was clearly understood. It's not coming from me, it's coming from the ACA, and this is what we have to follow. Section C1, knowledge of and compliance with the standards. Hey, I'm going to abbreviate some of this, guys, which basically what that's saying is you got to know this stuff. It is not up to your supervisor to make sure you know it. It is up to you to make sure you know it. Okay, my job right now is to simply tell you about it. It is your job to make sure that you've read it well enough to be able to understand that yes, you're following the code to the best of your ability and to the best of your knowledge. Okay, remember, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Okay, professional competence, section C2. Boundaries of competence. This one is real important, guys. Counselors practice only within the boundaries of their competence based upon education, training, supervised experience, state and national professional credentials, and appropriate professional experience. Whereas multicultural counseling competency is required across all counseling specialties, counselors gain knowledge, personal awareness, sensitivity, dispositions, and skills pertinent to being a culturally competent counselor and working with a diverse client population. So basically, kind of wrapping that one up into a nice neat package, you have to know your cultures, you have to know your knowledge base, you have to bring it all together at one time, depending on what training you've had. Now, for those that are under me as supervisee, I cannot train you in eating disorders. I can't. I don't have experience with it. What little bit of experience I have is to refer out. Some of the areas that I can train you under, we will have already discussed. And I'll be making videos specific to those items later on. But you can only work within the areas that you have been trained. New specialty areas. Counselors practice in specialty areas new to them only after appropriate education, training, and supervised experience. While developing skills in a new specialty area, counselors take steps to ensure the competence of their work and protect others from possible harm. You got to remember back about looking at the previous two sections, A and B, about how we do no harm. Okay, so if you're going to practice something that's new to you, make sure you've had the proper training. If there's a required certification in it, then get it. Not all of them do require it. You can, for example, you can use cognitive behavioral therapy approaches and not be certified. We've all been trained in that. That's a part of your education. You cannot use certain assessment tools. Sorry, even with a doctorate, there's certain ones you cannot use. Just that's the way it is. Section C, 2C, qualified for employment. This one's tricky. Counselors accept employment only for positions for which they are qualified given their education, training, supervised experience, state and national professional credentials, appropriate professional experience. Counselors hire for professional counseling positions only individuals who are qualified and competent for those positions. So that's one of my areas, is to help my associates get appropriately qualified to be able to function and work in different settings. Okay, so right now, those of you that are under me, the majority of you are working in hospital settings or clinic settings at this time, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a great place to start. I rarely work with individuals that start in a private practice setting simply because, in my opinion, they need to have that clinical level experience of exposure and time working with clinical mental illness. Okay, that would be specific to severe cases of bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, schizoaffective, clients that are actively manic, clients that are actively under the influence. You need to see that stuff as an associate. Okay, monitor effectiveness, section C, number 2, letter D. Guys, you have to check to make sure that what you're doing is working. Okay, so as you're working with people, let's say you have a client that you've been working with for a couple weeks, they should be slowly changing and becoming more stable, more improved. They can identify improvements. Their 0 to 10 scales are coming down. Whatever the emotion is, it's starting to stabilize. And it may be your effectiveness, it may be the psychiatrist's effectiveness, it may have just been something that took place in a group setting that you weren't a part of. But we have to maintain looking at how well they're growing and developing. Okay, so this next one has a couple parts. Section 2F, continuing education. Real important, guys. You need to get more education. keep going back to school, keep going back and picking up training. We are required by the state of Texas to have 1 CEU per month during our licensing. So in a 2-year license, that means you got to have 24 credits. Okay, some of that is in ethics specifically. Some of it can be in other areas. I would highly encourage you during your LPC associate time to get continuing education in a broad area. Go to several different things, pick up different items, okay? We'll talk more in face-to-face of available CEUs and different conferences you can go to specific to women's issues, trauma, abuse, addiction recovery. There's some excellent training that comes up in the Houston area. Okay, with regards to impairment, it is your responsibility to check yourself, okay? It is also our responsibility to check our peers. And I have seen this happen actively in an employment that I had several years back, where a counselor showed up under the influence of a prescription medication and it affected them in ways that was not anticipated. They had to be relieved of duty for a brief period of time until they could get checked out and cleared to come back. That kind of thing happens. Also, sad to say, what happens is a lot of times counselors, just like other professions, can get addicted to alcohol and other substances. Guys, you got to be careful on the self-care. You know, I get it. If culturally speaking you want to have a glass of wine with your dinner, that's fine. But if you're having, you know, a bottle of wine a night and you're not able to go through your workday without knocking back another one, hey, you know, that might be a real issue, okay? Especially if you're working with people, because that'll make you a bit of a hypocrite. So you want to be cautious of that one for many reasons. Okay. Section C3D, recruitment through employment. Now this one, it can be a little tricky here, okay? So counselors do not use their place of employment or institutional affiliation to recruit clients, supervisors, or consultees for their private practices. So in other words, if you're working at a hospital and you're already a fully licensed LPC, guess what? You cannot go through there handing out your business card trying to drum up business for your practice. That is unethical. Also, product and training advertisements. Counselors who develop products, in other words, you created something to sell related to the field. Let's say you come up with the infamous widget that's going to relieve everyone's stress and anxiety. You can't hawk it while you're at work. You just can't. It would be unethical. Promoting to those that are served. Counselors do not use counseling, teaching, training, or supervisory relationships to promote their products or training events in a manner that is deceptive or would exert undue influence on individuals who may be vulnerable. However, there is a little caveat to this one. As a counselor educator, they can actually adopt textbooks that they've authorized for instructional purposes. So, for example, if you end up getting your PhD in counselor education or some other doctorate in psychology and you end up being a professor, then yeah, you can have your students purchase your book through the school bookstore or online. It's a part of the training that you've created and developed at that point in time. That's different. But if you're a master's level counselor and you come up with some new whiz-bangs something or other, not the right place or location to be promoting that. Okay, your credentials. You are only able to tell people what you have as long as it's in good standing. So in other words, as an LPC associate, you have to tell them you are an LPC associate. You're not a licensed professional counselor yet. You're the associate level. The same thing would be true of someone who has the LPC supervisory status. For those of us that have that, if it falls out of good standing, let's say they didn't get all of their credentials together to keep their CEUs, because we're required to have more classes than the 24 credits. We have to have 30. Then that they can lose that status. Doesn't mean they'll lose their counseling status, just their supervisory status. Additionally, there's other licensing. For example, the state of Texas also has the LSOTP, Licensed Sex Offender Treatment Provider. For that one, that has to be maintained also in good standing. Educational degrees. You can only advertise what you have earned. Okay, let's say if someone gives you an honorary degree, it doesn't count, guys. Can't use it. All right. When you put on the wall of your business location, or if you carry your the little card with you, which used to be required, that we have that with us all the time while we're in hospital work. What I used to do is I would take a copy of mine, laminate it, punch the hole through it, and put it on my my little ID holder. I still keep one with my keys just because it's easy for me to know where they're at. All right, this one here is real important. That's why I have it differently and highlighted. Section C, 4D, implying doctoral level competence. Counselors clearly state their highest earned degree in counseling or closely related field. Counselors do not imply doctoral level competence when possessing a master's degree in counseling or a related field by referring to themselves as doctor. In a counseling context, when their doctorate is not in counseling or a related field. Also, you cannot use ABD as though it is a title, because it's not. Okay, at present time, I am all but dissertation, and I'm waiting on this next semester for everything to get fired up and rocking and rolling. But that is yet to be done. So at this point in time, I still have to tell people I am a master's level. I have not obtained my doctorate yet. All right, so we're getting close to being done. Non-discrimination. Simply stated, you can't discriminate, guys. If you're in a counseling situation and you feel bigoted towards any one population group, you really need to check yourself at the door and ask if you're in the right field. Exploitation of others. Here again, no, don't do it. Okay, if it comes out and you get called into the board that it looks as though you're exploiting individuals, let's say you're keeping them on your private practice beyond their needs, they've been resolved their problems, but you're keeping them on to get that money, then you're taking advantage of them. You're exploiting them. So you have to be very cautious of that one. Also, contributing. Okay, so we are encouraged to give back to the community. You can do that in many, many ways. One of the ways I do that is for those that are under me, we've already discussed, and you know how I do that. Not only through private practice, but also some volunteer work in various organizations and ways of help. Treatment modalities, guys, this one is huge, okay? You must only use appropriately scientifically based treatments. You cannot go all free willy-nilly, just by the seat of your pants. You have to follow a theoretical orientation that allows you to be able to back it up with science and research. Okay, for those of you know, if I haven't already started working with you on your therapeutic identity and who you are as a counselor, developing your theory, looking at the science behind it, get ready, because we're about to go down that path. Okay, development and innovation. When you're using innovative techniques, procedures, modalities, explain the risks. Okay, it kind of falls under the area of informed consent. You have to explain to people. Okay, I use a lot of experiential approaches, a lot of sensory focused solutions, and that kind of inner awareness work. I have to explain to people it can feel a little weird, but once we get there, they'll be able to identify what it is they're feeling better, and you just have to be open with folks. Harmful practices, don't do them. Okay, pure and simple. There's a lot of research out there on different ways that have been tested, and they are not effective, and they are in fact harmful. Okay, responsibilities to other professionals as we wrap up. This is the only one under C8, and it's the last one for this section. Basically what this one is saying is you can only speak for yourself. You cannot speak to the effectiveness of the profession or for the field itself. Okay, you can only talk from your own personal experience. Okay guys, this was section C of the ACA Code of Ethics. This is the third installment for Welcome to Supervision on the ethics title. We're going to be going into more detail on other topics as time goes by, but I look forward to seeing you in here, and until then, take care.